In a historic first visit by an Indian Prime Minister, PM Modi is in Brunei. The two countries are marking 40 years of their diplomatic relations. This visit by the Prime Minister is much more than this. For starters, it is crucial to counter the rising China aggression in the Indo-Pacific region. Before I introduce my guests, take a look at this report. The rising China aggression, a safer South Asian region, and a country that is working towards a stable and inclusive Indo-Pacific. India has been reaching out to countries that are part of its Act East policy. In a first-ever visit by an Indian PM, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Brunei, where he was received by the Crown Prince Haji Al Billah. The PM then inaugurated the new Chancellery of the High Commission of India and visited the Omar Ali Mosque. As the two nations mark 40 years of their diplomatic relations, Brunei, an ASEAN member, is important for India as a partner in its Act East policy, crucial to counter the rising Chinese assertiveness, and as an oil-rich country. Even though China is the biggest investor in Brunei, the two countries stand opposed in the South China Sea. Brunei is a claimant of the South China Sea territory, along with Vietnam, Philippines, and other smaller nations. But Brunei sees China's Belt and Road Initiative as a tool to bolster its own Vision 2035, an ambitious plan to create a more diversified and sustainable economy. On the other hand, India and Brunei have had bilateral trade worth $195 million in 2023. The two countries are now focusing on strengthening their cooperation in defense, energy, trade and investment, along with the wider aim of ensuring that President Xi Jinping gets a strong message. Bureau Report, Mirror Now. All right, let's try and understand why this Prime Minister visit to Brunei is crucial for India and the Indo-Pacific. Broadcast, I'm joined by Professor Madhav Nalapat, he's a geopolitical expert. I'm also joined by Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador. Good evening and namaskar to both of you gentlemen. Ambassador Sajjanhar, let me start with you. It's the first time an Indian Prime Minister is visiting the micro-state of Brunei, the first time in 40 years since diplomatic relationship was established. Why did it take us 40 years to consider Brunei as a crucial partner?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shreya, for having me on the show. I think since Prime Minister Modi came to power, it's been the policy of the government to reach out to even the smallest of countries around the globe. We must recognize that there are 193, close to 200 countries in the world. And you would recall that, in 2014, when Prime Minister Modi went to Australia in November of 2014, it was 28 years, since the last Prime Ministerial visit from India to Australia. So, even major powers, even in our neighborhood, when he went to Sri Lanka in March of 2015, it was after 32 years that Indian Prime Minister was paying a bilateral visit. To Nepal, when he went in August of 2014, it was after 17 years. So there is, in the past, there have been delays. But I think as far as Prime Minister Modi is concerned, he's tried to set this, tried to correct this situation that you pay attention, you focus only on the big countries and don't pay attention to the smaller countries. We've seen whether it was Fiji, he went in November 2014 again, it was after 33 years. And similarly like that. So I think it is good that Prime Minister Modi has gone to Brunei. As you said, it's the first visit. The diplomatic relations were established 40 years ago. Shreya, it will come as some sort of a surprise to your viewers and listeners that was immediately after Brunei became independent. It was a colony of the United Kingdom, and in 1984, it became an independent country and it established diplomatic relations. But now, of course, for
Yeah.
all the not only the geopolitical reasons, but also for bilateral economic reasons and strategic imperatives, Prime Minister has gone, and I'm sure you know whether it is space cooperation, or it is defense, or it is trade and investment, or it is energy, because it is a very rich country. It might be a small country, but you know, per capita income of Brunei is in the range of about $90,000. So, you know, in the ASEAN also, it is the most prosperous per capita in terms of per capita country. It is per capita, in fact, even more than that of Singapore. Partly, of course, the reason is because the population is rather limited. But it has huge potential.
Yeah.
It is also India's very close partner as far as the Indo-Pacific is concerned, as far as our Act East policy is concerned. So
Okay.
I'm sure that the discussions that the Prime
Talking
Minister
about that,
has
Ambassador
with
Sajjanhar, let
the
me take this
Sultan.
across to Professor Madhav Nalapat and get him into this discussion. Professor Nalapat, clearly one of the most crucial and the biggest reasons for India to be reaching out to countries like Brunei is to counter the rising Chinese aggression. But my question is, have we been delayed? Have we been late in responding to and acting against the rising Chinese aggression, or there is still time left? Because as we know, economically, China is the biggest investor in Brunei, so there are close ties there. Have we been too late in reaching out?
Shreya, we've been exactly on time because tectonic shifts geopolitically are shifting, and they're shifting away from China. We're talking of micro-states. Look at Dubai, look at Singapore. These are tiny states in terms of land area, but huge in terms of economic impact. Look at Taiwan, small in area, but huge in terms of impact on technology. I want to say that Prime Minister Modi is the first Prime Minister in India to accept the natural neighborhood of India is not just South Asia. All of us are obsessed with South Asia, South Asia, South Asia. No, Shreya, it's Southern Asia. All the way from the Middle East to Southeast Asia is India's neighborhood. We are big enough for that. We are important enough for that. And the entire neighborhood is ours. So from that point of view, Prime Minister Modi is the first Prime Minister in India from 1947 to recognize it's not just South Asia, it's Southern Asia. That's our neighborhood. Now, coming to Brunei, we have talked to Dubai, we have talked to Singapore. Brunei is a very important country. Forget its per capita income. The fact is, it's a very moderate country. It's 100% Muslim and 100% almost moderate. I haven't heard of extremists in Brunei. If you have or somebody else has, please allow them to inform me. I'd like to know. And the royal family has kept it so. It's an outstanding royal family, committed to reform, committed to progress, committed to modernization, and has historically been very close to India, including the previous Sultan, say, Sheikh Hassanal Bolkiah. He has been very friendly with India, and the current Sheikh is also now extremely friendly with India. So I'm very glad that Prime Minister Modi has gone to Brunei. It's a great statement, and it's important to go to this stronghold of moderation in a world where there are cesspools of extremism in different parts of the world. Thank you.
Okay. Ambassador Sajjanhar, talking of what India gets out of Brunei, there is a lot of, what we get out of this relationship. But for Brunei, the fact that the Crown Prince received the Prime Minister at the airport, there was a grand welcome for him. This visit is happening on the invitation of the Sultan of Brunei. What does it say about Brunei and how it places importance on its relationship with India?
Yeah, that's a very important question, but I think around the world, it's not only for Brunei, but so many other countries. India has today truly become the partner of choice. It's not only the fact that it's such a large country, it is a democracy, it has an economy which over the last 10 years has risen from the 10th place to the 5th place, very soon going to become the third largest economy in just a couple of years. So obviously, when it is a energy rich country, Brunei, it is, of course, looking also for destinations which are stable, which are, confirmed markets, growing markets, reliable markets for its energy exports. And there could not be any better place than India. At the moment, energy imports from Brunei are rather modest. We have been importing for the earlier years from the Middle East, from West Asia, but in more recent years, we have, last 2 years since the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, Russia has emerged as a very significant exporter of oil and gas to India. So I think for that, also what you mentioned yourself, and very correctly so, the geostrategic compulsions, because although it has good relations with China, but you see the connection of the other countries in the neighborhood, whether it is Malaysia or it is Philippines or it is Vietnam, all of them have good economic relations with China. For all of them, China is the biggest trading partner. For all of them, China is the biggest investor, but still they have problems. And these countries are looking at other options, other opportunities, other possibilities. And there cannot be any other possibility that is better for them than India, because India, as I mentioned, big country, big population, big territorial, and big influence, growing influence. And India also has its own issues with China. And India is the strongest supporter of open and free Indo-Pacific. And that is what small countries like Brunei and Singapore, all of them are looking for.
Yeah. Professor Nawat, talking about the fact that these smaller countries have had their own challenges with China, one of the major ones has been the South China Sea, of which Brunei has been a claimant as well. There is Chinese investment, there is the South China Sea challenge. In between Brunei and China, there's United States angle as well. In fact, Brunei is between United States and China geopolitically, strategically, if we talk about. How do you see Brunei really, taking into consideration that strained relationship, considering that its probably existence, its survival depends on these big powers?
Look, Shreya, I'd like to say clearly that Brunei has a very good policy, and the people of Brunei and the Sultan and the royal family, very proud people. They're not going to accept second-class status to anybody, certainly not to Xi Jinping. I mentioned that tectonic shifts are taking place. The fact of the matter is the US and China, not just India and China, they are ASEAN and China. I've traveled extensively throughout Southern Asia. I can tell you that there's great uneasiness at the aggressive expansionist posture of Xi Jinping and the way he's claiming vast sea, air, space, and land territories of neighboring countries and nearby countries as Chinese. It's ridiculous. You got a 9-dash line, which is crazy. It is invented by some delusional person. The point is, India and the United States, to name the two countries most critical for a free, open, inclusive Indo-Pacific, need to work together. From 2014 onward, Prime Minister Modi is the first PM to recognize that. He revitalized the Quad. It had been destroyed by Kevin Rudd of Australia. Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe, a very great man, they revitalized the Quad. Prime Minister Modi has signed all the Defense Foundation agreements with India. Now India can send its military hardware anywhere in the US, and the US can do likewise. Which prime minister had gumption to accept
Yeah.
that India and the US, as the world's biggest democracies, need to work together and create a legal framework for that? None other than Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I want to say it's a matter of time before this
Okay.
decoupling starts becoming faster and faster and faster. And when that time happens, believe me, a lot of the investment that is going to is now in China, for example, Taiwanese investment, will go to India. So I think, Shreya, yeah, this is the right period. The decoupling is a fact of life. It's going to only strengthen.
But it's
Why?
not happening
2.0
overnight,
strength.
Professor Nalapat. It has been taking time. This decoupling and the decrease in Chinese influence that we're talking about, we've been talking about this since the COVID-19 time. It hasn't taken perhaps at a pace in which the world expected it to happen.
Shreya, that's a very good point, and allow me to elaborate. I mean, for 1.5 minutes, why this has happened. You have Joe Biden, who frankly has a very weak-kneed policy on China. The Biden administration, they're all wonderful people. You have them over dinner, get them to a party. They're the best people. Blinken, Sullivan, all of them. They're lovely people, including Joe Biden and Jill Biden. But the fact is, they either don't see the need or they don't have the stomach to confront China the way India, for example, or the Philippines has been confronting China.
Okay.
Both of us have fought China on land, sea, Philippines and India. Other countries would like to follow. But looking at Biden, who's the partner? I mean, India by itself cannot do it. It has to be in partnership with the US. So hopefully after the US election, you'll have an assertive US leadership, whether it's Kamala Harris, hopefully she'll understand the Biden policy towards China is a wrong policy for the United States and for democracies. If it's Trump, there's no question that J.D. Vance is going to have a very strong policy. So believe me, Shreya, you are on the cusp of seeing major decoupling take place, and that is going to happen to the benefit of India. Shreya.
Okay, that's what I was coming to next. Quickly, I have to wrap this discussion up, but 30 seconds, Ambassador Sajjanhar, now that we're talking about the US presidential election as well, Donald Trump has been accused of Islamophobia. If he comes to power, does that change anything as regards to the Indo-Pacific, the relationship with China? Of course, we know it has been strained since the Trump regime. With Brunei specifically?
Yeah, I think as far as India-US relations are concerned, I am quite certain that irrespective of who comes to power, the relationship will continue to grow and expand. You see, it has been expanding since 2000, since Clinton came to India. After that, we've had Democratic presidents, we have had Republican presidents, but the India-US relationship has continued to grow. As far as the Indo-Pacific and the Quad is concerned, Shreya, we need to realize that 2017, when the Quad was reinvigorated, the reincarnation took place. It was Donald Trump who was in power. So, if Shinzo Abe in 2007 might have sort of, made the first reference to the Indo-Pacific, it was really Trump when he came in 2017 who really took it forward and got it together. Of course, I must give full credit to Mr. Joe Biden also, because he is the first one who took it to the summit level immediately after he came. In April 2021, the first virtual summit; in September, the first in-person summit in Washington, D.C. So I think as far as Brunei is concerned, Indo-Pacific is concerned, the policies on Indo-Pacific, I think they are going to continue irrespective of who comes to power. And the support, India, United States, Quad countries,
so
Japan,
we'll have to wait and watch, Ambassador
Australia.
Sajjanhar, how this really moves forward and what eventually happens in November this year, the US presidential elections. But for now, I'll have to wrap it here. Ambassador Sajjanhar and Professor Madhav Nalapat, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspectives.